Welcome back to another impactful episode of the PSTA podcast. It is Craig King, your host, and as a resident kind of sort of Gamecock women's basketball fan, I am in mourning with the rest of Gamecock Nation.
Yeah, me too, Craig, but let's be honest.
Yeah.
We're Gamecock fans.
Yep.
If you had told Patrick Kelly 25 years ago that I could pick a USC athletic program that a down year would be national runner-up and we'd win like 3 of the last 7 national titles and in the finals the last 3 or 4 years, sign me up.
Yeah.
Like, sign me up. That is the greatness of Don Staley when national runner-up can feel like something other than success. I celebrate those ladies. Like, they lost the most dominant center in college basketball last year.
True.
They ran it back, and they just ran into a buzzsaw. Sometimes the other team's hot.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it was. I think anybody that had 2 eyes that could see UConn going through the tournament realized that they were ready for the moment. And sometimes it's not your day.
It's not, but go Gamecocks.
Go Gamecocks, that's right. So we'll be back next year, sure of it.
That's right.
Raven Johnson, stay another year.
Please.
Yeah,
please.
Stay one more year. Yeah, you're making me nervous. But anyway, let's get back to what the people really came here for, which is your favorite snack. I'm just kidding. They didn't come for that. But what is your favorite snack, by the way, Patrick?
Oh, man, that's
not Super Bowl snack because it's different.
So I'm a creature of habit. My wife and my children would judge me right now. I'm a sweet than salty person at night, so I need something. My go-to right now is Reese's covered animal crackers, high quality.
That's a good one.
And then I chase it with some sort of chip, like a Cheetos or something. I just need something salty. It's completely unhealthy, but that's what I need right now.
But you're also a professional, semi-professional, however you want to call it, runner. So
no, I'm a teacher in the 4th 9 weeks. I'm just trying to get to the finish line, man.
Yeah, I feel you, man. But I'll think on my favorite snack and maybe come towards the end. I'll let you guys know. I got to think about it. So, Patrick, we are winding down. How many more legislative days?
6 weeks, 18 days. Who's counting?
Who is counting? So let's address the Educator Assistance Act. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most most important conversations and pieces of legislation that we are dealing with this year, dealing with education. So where are we now?
So this is our number one priority for the year. We think that this bill will fundamentally transform educator working conditions in important ways. The bill is scheduled for another full Senate Education Committee hearing tomorrow, and tomorrow is Tuesday, April the 8th. It's part of an agenda of 3 bills, and assuming that they have enough time, they've got 2 hours in their committee meeting because the Senate Finance Committee starts at 12:30, and a lot of the education members are on the Finance Committee, so they got to be done at 12:30. As long as they don't run out of time, we are cautiously optimistic that they're going to be able to advance the bill on Tuesday. When they reviewed it 2 weeks ago, there wasn't any strident opposition to the bill stated by any committee member, but there were questions. There were requests for amendment. That is typical during the Education Committee process. So the scenario tomorrow would appear to be there will be some amendments that have been drafted to address member concerns and questions from the last meeting. Those amendments will be adopted, and then the bill will be reported to the full Senate. That's the most likely outcome. Anything's possible. So if you're listening to this on the 9th and you've already read the Educator Assistance Act didn't come out of committee, then just go ahead and judge me. I'm either a stock market forecaster or a weather forecaster. My hot takes are worth nothing. But that's the likely scenario. Now, from there, it goes to the Senate floor. The Senate this week is, what's our favorite term, Craig?
Perfunctory.
They're in perfunctory session, which means they are not meeting in floor debate this week. So the bill would be eligible for debate next week, starting on April 15th. And we'll see where it goes from there. The key is going to be for no senator to object to the bill. So if you are interested and invested and supportive of the Educator Assistance Act, contact your senator and ask them to support debate for the Educator Assistance Act. If it gets debate under uncontested status, it has a great pathway to get to the governor in 2025.
Yeah. Go ahead. Finish.
Well, I was just going to say, if it gets objected to and it moves to the contested calendar, it's not dead for the year, but man, the process gets a whole lot harder and the odds get a whole lot lower.
Yeah, and if you have relationships with your senator, explain in your own words why this bill is going to benefit you and why it's going to be a nod of appreciation and respect for you in your classroom, and why it's a retention tool. There are many things listed in the Educator Assistance Act that are going to benefit teachers currently in the classroom, and so use those and tie them into your personal story and leverage that in your communications with your senators. So thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yep. So last week we had some movement and changes on DEI, on the DEI legislation. So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so H 3927, I think the title of the bill is the Ending Illegal Anti-Discrimination Act or something to that effect, but it's the anti-DEI bill. We got version 3.0 of the bill. So the quick synopsis, in case people have not been tracking this, is a bill was introduced about a month ago that had some really problematic language in it. Most notably, it would have forbid any program or activity designed in reference to race or sex, which we've mentioned on this podcast means Girls on the Run. It means African American History Month. It means keep going down the list. If it's designed in reference to race or sex, it would have been gone. The bill would have also banned any state agency or entity, including school districts, from contracting with a private company that has a DEI policy, period. Any DEI policy. That version of the bill went to the House Education Committee. They heard 5 hours of testimony. They heard from 64-ish individuals, assuming I got my count right that day. Not a single soul spoke in favor of the bill. Not a single soul offered a problem that they needed the bill to solve. 64 souls talked about the problems in the bill. So the Education Committee came back a week later. They struck the entire bill. They replaced it with a bill that was highly similar to a prior bill from a prior session dealing mainly with higher ed. That bill advanced to the full House. 2 weeks ago, that bill was on the full House calendar. Debate started. Amendments were introduced, and then debate was adjourned, which never happens on the House floor. When they start on a bill, they typically finish a bill. When debate was adjourned, the rationale given by leadership was they wanted to consider the amendments that had been offered. Fast forward to last Wednesday. They start debate again. There are 27 amendments put up on the bill. The first 26 are all tabled, which means they're killed. All of those, not all of them, but the bulk of those amendments had been on the desk the week before, when allegedly the desire was to review amendments to consider their merit. None of them got accepted. Amendment number 27 struck the entire bill again. And remember, we're already on version 2.0. So they struck 2.0 and they replaced it with 3.0. 3.0 is the first instance in the nation of a legislature turning President Trump's anti-DEI executive order from January 2025 into standalone state legislation.
So 3.0, from a comparison standpoint, is it similar to the first version of the legislation?
It probably has far more similarities to the first version than it does to the second version, but it has important distinctions from the first version. Most notably, it does not include the language about prohibiting a program or activity designed in reference to race or sex. So that hyper-subjective, loose terminology from the first bill is missing in this newest version that the House just passed. The second big difference is that first version had the prohibition on state entities contracting with private companies with a DEI policy, period. The new bill that just passed the House and is moving to the Senate prohibits it doesn't prohibit. It says that a state entity, before it can contract with a company, the company must certify that it does not have a DEI policy that breaks existing federal or state anti-discrimination laws. So that not DEI policies, period. A contractor cannot be operating an illegal DEI policy under existing law. And so in a lot of ways, that phrase about illegal discrimination shows up a lot. In the definition of DEI in the new bill passed by the House, it defines DEI explicitly as a policy that violates federal or state laws against discrimination. In effect, it makes it illegal to do things that were illegal at the time the bill was passed.
Right. Okay.
So, it is certainly not the first bill.
Right.
But it's not 100% clear what the new bill would do if it was signed into law, because the activities, especially in the K-12 space, there's some unique new things in the higher ed space. It prohibits an individual from having to, and I guess this would apply to K-12 as well, but it would prohibit an individual from being compelled to sign a DEI statement as a condition of employment. It deals with higher ed accreditation and higher ed having to find accreditors that don't have DEI policies if they can. But in the K-12 space, it's not abundantly clear what, if anything, this bill changes, because it keeps talking about not doing things that were already illegal. And I guess it kind of begs the question of, if the activity was already illegal and you were doing it, why does a second bill all of a sudden make you go, oh, no, they're serious?
Right.
I'm just not, it's not abundantly clear what this does that is new and novel. Of course you can't violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Of course you can't violate state anti-discrimination statutes. But that's what the bill largely does.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that update. And, the bill has now moved to the House and not to the Senate. I'm sorry. To the Senate. And so if this is a piece of legislation that you feel strongly against, we highly encourage you to reach out to your senators.
And it's probably highly unlikely to move in the Senate this year, just because the limited number of remaining days.
Very true.
This week, Craig, the Senate is what?
Perfunctory
session. So this week's out. We're down to 5. They've got a week for the state budget. Now we're down to 4.
Yeah.
The odds of them even having time, if they made this a top priority, of getting to the floor this year, highly unlikely, but it'll start 2026 in a position where it could clearly make it to the finish line if the Senate wanted to take it up.
Well, we'll keep everyone posted on the movement if there is any in the Senate. I know the budget process has kind of started. Mm-hmm. The Senate finance committees have started working at provisos. And so are there any budget provisos that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so the Senate Finance K-12 subcommittee met last week twice to review budget provisos. The bulk of that meeting is reviewing the provisos that have been adopted and passed over from the House. Most significantly, the K-12 Finance Subcommittee adopted the proviso that includes the teacher salary schedule. So they adopted the House version of the salary schedule, which is the $1,500 raise to every cell in step 0 through 28 in the bachelor's, master's plus 30, and doctorate lanes. So it would appear that the Senate is going to adopt the same position as the House on salaries, which is good news. Beyond that, they reviewed some House provisos. They removed a few that are redundant because they're not needed anymore due to new laws. And they introduced a few new ones. I think 2 that kind of caught my attention was, number 1, Senator Sean Bennett, the chair of the committee, has been very adamant the last few years as the legislature has been debating name, image, and likeness legislation for collegiate athletics. He's been very clear he doesn't like that, but he understands that's the nature of the industry right now. Mm. But he's made it abundantly clear that he will absolutely do everything in his power to prevent NIL from showing up in high school athletics. It is starting to trickle down.
Yeah.
So he took an existing House budget proviso dealing with forfeits and fines for high school athletics, and he sunk in a prohibition on NIL. So if that makes it to the finish line, that would prohibit high school NIL in the state of South Carolina.
And there was the high school league passed a rule, I guess, in the past couple of weeks, allowing a student to transfer to another.
Yeah, the transfer rule isn't really implicated by this. What the transfer rule honestly is doing is catching up with the existing education scholarship account law.
Okay.
Lesser known element of that law, because everybody was focused on, the core issue of can you use public dollars to support private schools. The law right now has a provision that says if a student receives an ESA and they transfer, they cannot be penalized or ruled athletically ineligible. So if I was a Richland 2 student and I got an ESA and I went to Fairfield School District and I was using my ESA, high school league rules say I'd have to sit out 12 months unless I had a bona fide change of residence. but the law says you can't hold me ineligible. So what the high school league was basically doing was catching up to what the law already says.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks for that clarification. Before we get out of here, Patrick, anything else you want to share with the good people?
Yeah, S78 is going to be on the House Education Committee docket tomorrow, the 8th. The K-12 subcommittee has a really robust, full agenda, has a couple House bills, and then they're taking up 3 bills that have already passed the Senate. Outside of the Educator Assistance Act, the single bill I've gotten the most communication from educators about this year is S78.
That's the work experience credit, right?
That's right. That's Senator Tom Young out of Aiken's work experience credit bill that would allow a teacher to get years of experience on their certificate for related occupational activities. That's true for new teachers under the bill. It's also true for current teachers. So if you've been teaching for 15 years, but before you entered teaching, you're teaching chemistry and you worked in a chemistry lab for 5 years, if this bill becomes law, you could apply to the State Department of Education to have additional years of experience added onto your certificate, which obviously moves you to another step and gets you more pay. So this, we think, is just common sense legislation. There's only about 3 states in the nation that currently do this on a statewide basis, but one of those 3 is North Carolina. And we are constantly in a arms race for teaching talent with North Carolina.
Yeah.
We are kicking North Carolina's tail on almost every metric, whether it's teacher pay, whether it's paid parental leave, whether it's go down the list. But this is one policy that North Carolina's got a leg up on us, and especially if you're sitting on the border in York County or you're in Horry and you're not that far from the border, this is an important recruitment tool against North Carolina, but it's also an important tool to get our educators something closer to the competitive salary that they deserve as a working professional.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had some Hill days in the past few weeks where we've talked about this piece of legislation, and the question came up because at that moment, in full transparency, I didn't realize that current teachers could take advantage of this piece of legislation. And the question was raised from some of the teachers that were second career educators. And so, this is a great piece of legislation. So thank you for that, Patrick. This week, we have Where Shows Greenwood 51 coming tomorrow for their Hill Day. We also have our second Teacher Forum Teaching Fellows Hill Day with Francis Marion, University of South Carolina.
Clemson.
Wait.
Coastal.
Yep. Clemson. Lander.
There you go.
Yeah. Got all of them coming this week, and so we're excited about them coming
Did you say
up
Winthrop?
to the State House. Yes. Winthrop.
Okay, perfect.
Winthrop.
We don't want to leave anybody out.
Don't leave anybody out. That's right. When I was reading it, in full transparency to our listeners, I thought I was looking at the list from the first group. That's why I paused.
It's that time of the year.
I'm very honest with my listeners, Patrick.
Yeah,
I have to be
it's
honest
important.
with
Transparency.
them. Yeah, transparency matters. But favorite snack, I know you were wondering. That's the reason why you listened to this entire episode.
I see what you did there. You kept the good stuff for the end.
So as of recently, my favorite snack has been the fig bars. Because when I was a kid, I loved the fig bars. But now the new age fig bars with the strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, they are solid, man.
They're solid, and they're probably infinitely healthier than the Fig Newtons we had back in the 20th century.
Definitely that. But it's been another impactful episode of the PSTA podcast. This is Craig King, your host, with your favorite guest, Patrick Kelly. Tell us about your favorite snack in the comments. Thank you. See you next time.